You're listening to All Things Real Estate on Full Service Radio, 830 WCRN. Once again, here's your hosts, Gary Kelley and Brad Avergon.
Good morning and welcome to All Things Real Estate on WCRN AM 830. I am Gary Kelley and I am joined by
Brad Avergon with Envision Bank and Mortgage.
Yeah, I'm with Lamacchia Realty. I don't even know what time we're on anymore, Brad. They've moved us now to Saturday morning. And we just came out of the time change, which, I don't know, call me whatever you want to call me, but I really don't think that the days for time changes are needed anymore. Even though you have, the sun doesn't set till whatever time, 7. I'm from the Midwest. In the Midwest, sun used to set like 9:30, 10 o'clock at night. It was delightful.
Nice. That does sound nice. I remember it feeling like that as a kid. It used to feel like it had to be on home by the time the street lights came on. That was kind of the rule, the informal rule.
We had that rule. We also, if you're going to eat at someone's house, you had to let mom and dad know, which was fine. They didn't care. I mean, they just wanted to know where you were, that kind of thing. So It's all good. So Brad, when someone comes to me and says, we want to look at a house, okay, often they've found something that they're interested in on Zillow or Realtor or one of those. And, we'll talk to them. One of the first questions I always ask is, are you pre-approved? And Brad, you're a loan officer. You probably know what it means to be pre-approved.
I do indeed. Although there is some confusion in that because of semantics. So let me give you a little background on that. So pre-qualification used to mean that, somebody calls up on the telephone and they give some information, you take it down on a scratch pad and they say, what do you think I qualify for? And so you could run some quick numbers and say, general, this is roughly what you would look like, but it's not a pre-approval, it's a pre-qualification. And then along came the federal government and decided that, that's right. They said, well, we want to define what a pre-qualification is versus a pre-approval. So typically when I do a pre-approval, quote unquote pre-approval, I review a person's documentation. So I actually look at their W-2s, I look at their pay stubs, I look at their bank statements to make sure that there's no confusion or miscommunication, and that everything's going to go smoothly. So that when I put my name on a pre-letter, a pre-qualification or pre-approval letter, that it's solid. So what the federal government is, they decided that when we did a pre-approval, they said, well, you can't use that word pre-approval because it really hasn't gone in front of an underwriter. It has to be when you're pre-approving someone, they are in fact are approved. That is a full commitment to lend. And so semantically, a lot of lenders had to move to the position that they use the word pre-qualification, but they put the caveat in there that I've reviewed everything, I've run it through an automated underwriting, preliminary software. It's not a full approval, but it is pretty darn close to one. And this is the experience I've had doing that. So that's an important distinction. So pre-qualification and pre-approval are now, depending on the lender, used almost interchangeably, depending on the level that the lender has gone to, or the loan officer has gone to review the information.
Which is the higher bar, so to speak?
I think the higher bar is pre-approval, but I think that really, if it's just a loan officer that's done it, they're the same. They're the same type of documentation. It's only if a loan has actually gone in front of an underwriter and an underwriter has signed up, which doesn't happen in a 24-hour, 48-hour period. If you get a loan pre-approved officially, where they have to disclose, they have to send a bunch of disclosures out to the borrower, they have to have the borrower review them, and they have it go in front of an underwriter, you're usually talking about, up to a week to get that done from the time of.
But hold on a second. If I call a big lender out in Detroit, I can get a letter in about an hour.
Yeah.
How are they doing that?
That is not a full pre-approval. They may use the word pre-approval on it, but unless it's gone in front of an underwriter in light of an hour, which I highly doubt, that is not a full legal pre-approval. And again, it's a matter of semantics on that.
So now there's also some loan officers now touting that they will take all of your information and they'll get you to the point of it's all done. Just give us the property and we're done. And they're claiming that that's comparable to a cash offer, which I don't believe it is. Um, what are your thoughts on those structures?
Unless you have a formally underwritten on letter, lender's letterhead by an underwriter saying you are conditionally approved, subject to only the appraisal, let's say, of the property and perhaps a title review and maybe a rate lock, because you can't lock a rate typically unless you have a property under agreement. If those are the only conditions, then you're fine. Everything else is up for grabs. So meaning they are, unless you have something fully underwritten by an underwriter, in my opinion, you don't have approval. What you've got is a pre-qualification. And I don't want to take away from that. I think a good pre-qualification from a seasoned loan officer is extremely valuable, especially if the loan officer goes out and is willing to kind of say, hey, this is the due diligence I've done. This is what the vetting I've done. But it is not a commitment to lend. That's the language you want to look for in that letter.
So when I talk to someone and I ask, do you have a pre-approval? Do you have a pre-qualification? And they stare at me like I have 10 heads. I'm doing it for really a couple of purposes. One, I want to understand, kind of what the parameters are that they're able to look at. I do, and I've said it before on the show, I do come at this from the perspective that says they'll often get pre-approved or whatever for more dollars than they may be comfortable spending, and they should always revert back to their comfort level. But it also tells me, are there special types of mortgage products being used that I need to be aware of as they go in and look at properties? Do you want to speak to that at all?
Yeah, I do. That's a great point, Gary. So there's a lot of folks that get what I'm going to just refer to as a generic pre-approval letter. They either apply online or they just apply generally. Maybe they walk into a bank or something like that and they apply and they get this letter and now they feel empowered to be able to go make offers. But what oftentimes they don't understand is that there's intricacies to behind the scenes to that pre-approval letter that are very, very important. I'll give you a case in point. So if somebody goes and they get a pre-approval letter in Middlesex, let's say they indicate that they may be purchasing in Middlesex County, and then they cross over one town. We'll use towns that we're familiar with. So they get a pre-approval letter for Framingham, and they cross over one town and buy in Southborough. They've changed counties, and the loan limits are different for those counties. They may, by crossing over into Southborough, they may have crossed over into what we call a jumbo mortgage, which has a different rate and a different set of guidelines associated with it, and they can easily get themselves into trouble. So it's really important that, as a realtor, I know you reach out to the loan officers and try to get some clarification if it's kind of one of those vague letters. But it's really important that the client, the borrower, understand the parameters that pre-letter was done under. The other thing is that if it's a specialty program, such as a mass housing program or a federal housing agency, FHA program, or a VA program, those programs, by definition, have overlays as far as the quality of, the condition of the property, the quality of the condition of the property, safety hazards. They are much more stringent guidelines with those programs than a Fannie Mae or a Freddie Mac conventional program. And a borrower would not necessarily know that unless they've been advised in advance. So it's really, really important that level of communication from the loan officer to the borrower exists, that the loan officer is seasoned, and also from the loan officer to you, so that you understand how to best guide that borrower to the right home.
One of the things that I stumble on every once in a while with a buyer is they will say, I'm using an FHA loan. I don't care if it's FHA, VA, whatever. they're using an FHA loan and they don't need an inspection because the FHA program is going to do an inspection. And that's not the case.
Right, right. I very often, Gary, will get the question about the inspection of the property and what they're referring to. They say, well, we're going to pay this our normal appraisal fee is $425. We're going to pay this appraisal fee of $425 to get the inspection. Can we get a copy of the inspection? That way we don't have to order a home inspection. And I have to explain to them that the inspections are for different purposes. When we order an appraisal, and although the borrower is paying for that appraisal cost, an appraisal is a determination of value. And while an FHA appraisal may be more stringent and they may be looking for certain things to not exist in the property, like peeling paint, broken windows, safety hazards, things like that, they are not a substitution in any way, shape, or form for a home inspection, which goes into the workings of the property. The home inspection itself doesn't even reflect on value of the property. It talks to the condition of the property and the workings within that property itself.
So Brad, let me stop you right there. We got to pay some bills, and I hear Today saying you gotta cut it off. If someone wants to reach you, how would they do that?
Best way to reach me, Gary, is via my cell phone, which is 978-375-5531, or my email, which is bavergon@envisionbank.com. And Gary, how do they reach you?
I can be reached at 508-733-6005 or Gary@movewithgary.com. Brad, let's pay some bills and then we'll come back and we'll continue this conversation.
See you on the flip side.
You've been listening to All Things Real Estate on Full Service Radio, 830 WCRN.